Dr. Sarah Chin stood motionless before the massive display at the Global Defense Command Center, her usually steady hands trembling as her coffee cup sat forgotten on the counter beside her. The data streaming in across the various screens were readings unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. 12 crystalline vessels, each one more massive than Manhattan itself, had just emerged from what could only be described as distortions in spacetime at the edge of the Kuiper Belt. Multiple quantum signatures detected, the automated defense system, Aegis, announced in its steady, impassive tone, contrasting with the charged atmosphere in the room. Energy readings exceed our entire planet's output by a factor of 1,000, it continued, and a hushed tension rippled through the council chamber as Earth's leaders absorbed the scale of the approaching threat. Decades of planning and preparation for first contact with an extraterrestrial power suddenly seemed a mere rehearsal for what they now faced. Admiral James Rodriguez, a grizzled veteran who had overseen humanity's first Mars colonies, leaned forward in his chair, jaw set with resolve. "Show me their approach vector," he commanded. A holographic projection bloomed before them, displaying the alien fleet's deliberate and unhurried progression through the solar system. There was no attempt at stealth. Their formation spoke volumes, conveying a level of confidence, perhaps even an almost ritual arrogance, that chilled the assembled leaders. Incoming transmission, Aegis intoned. Multiple frequencies detected. Universal decode pattern engaged. A brief moment later, a message materialized on the screen in front of them, translated seamlessly by what appeared to be an advanced universal language algorithm. Short, to the point, and disturbingly clinical, it read, "People of Earth, you are hereby notified of your incorporation into the Galactic Empire. Resistance is historically futile. Prepare for assessment and integration. Your biological and technological distinctiveness will be preserved and utilized for the greater glory of the Empire." The command room erupted into frantic murmurs and overlapping voices as officials, scientists, and military leaders all struggled to process the transmission. Dr. Chin, however, was focused, her mind working faster than her peers. She stepped forward, clearing her throat, and the room gradually quieted, her calm voice cutting through the chaos. "Look closely at their ship configurations," she said, pointing at the crystalline structures that composed the alien vessels. "These aren't just warships. They're repositories, libraries of some kind. These aren't merely conquerors, they're data collectors. They study the civilizations before they conquer them, absorbing their knowledge and culture." Admiral Rodriguez narrowed his eyes, understanding her implication. "So they've done this before," he said, a note of grim certainty coloring his voice. Dr. Chin nodded. "Many, many times if I'm reading their transmission protocols correctly. The sophistication alone suggests millennia of practice. But there's one thing they haven't encountered before." She paused and looked around the room, letting the weight of her words sink in. "They've never encountered humanity." In response, the council convened in an emergency session, spending exactly 3 minutes in deliberation. It was perhaps the shortest yet most consequential vote in human history, every member fully aware of the stakes. The message they sent back was as brief as the Empire's, but weighted with centuries of experience in conflict, innovation, and survival against impossible odds. "We strongly advise against this course of action." A silence settled over the room as they waited for a reply. The alien ships had halted their advance, holding position just beyond Neptune's orbit. The pause stretched out to a tense 47 seconds before a response arrived. "Your advice is noted and dismissed. Preparation protocols will commence within one planetary rotation." Admiral Rodriguez's face hardened. "Send them everything," he ordered. Dr. Chin knew exactly what he meant. Within moments, Aegis began broadcasting a carefully curated selection of Earth's historical archives. The battles, the resistance movements, the conflicts and uprisings that had defined humanity's long, often brutal journey to this point. Images and data relayed the battle at Thermopylae, the Warsaw Uprising, the Winter War, every time humanity had defied empires, fought impossible odds, and, against all logic, prevailed. Scientific breakthroughs were included, too. The rapid adaptation of humanity to new threats, the transformation of poisons into medicines, viruses into vaccines, nuclear weapons into sources of power. The message was clear. Humanity had taken the very forces that nearly destroyed it and made them strengths. This time, the Empire's response took longer, precisely 2 minutes and 13 seconds, before their terse message appeared. "Your species' confidence is noted. It will not alter the outcome." Dr. Chin glanced at Admiral Rodriguez, who was already activating the Global Defense Network. "They didn't understand the message, did they, sir?" "No, Doctor," he replied, watching as humanity's hidden defenses began to power up across the solar system. But they will. Far away, aboard the Imperial flagship, analyst Zixo's secondary hearts pulsed with frustration as he absorbed the strange data streams filling his neural interface. His research chamber's crystalline walls reflected 1,000 holographic displays, each documenting different facets of Earth's complex and unpredictable history. He muttered to himself in disbelief, his translucent fingers manipulating data in a blur. "Impossible," he murmured. "Species don't develop like this." His assistant, Vina, floated nearby, her bioluminescent patterns flickering with confusion. "Clarify, honored analyst." "Look at their progression curve," Zixo replied, pulling up a comparative analysis of human development. "Every other species we've encountered follows a predictable trajectory: fire, tools, agriculture, industrialization, space flight." He shook his head. "But humans?" He gestured to the chaotic display. "They accelerate under pressure. They grow stronger through conflict. It doesn't make sense." The display showed Earth's technological advancement, revealing a series of abrupt spikes rather than a smooth curve. Each leap forward came in response to a crisis, a war, a near disaster, or some threat to humanity's survival. It was a pattern of resilience, of adaptation to impossible odds. Zixo studied it, a realization dawning. They turn weapons into power sources, deadly substances into medicines. They've made adaptation a way of life. Vina's bioluminescent patterns shifted, showing further confusion as she reviewed the data. But how? Every species has a focus: warriors, scholars, builders. They divide these roles. Zixo shook his head. Humans can be all of those things. Every individual seems capable of both creation and destruction, of thinking and fighting. Warriors write poetry. Scholars practice combat. Builders design weapons. Vina's patterns flickered in disbelief. Surely the War Council should know this. Zixo's hearts pulsed with dread as he sent an urgent communication up the chain of command. "Certainly, here is a 1,000-word expansion of the scene." Dr. Chen brought up another set of images, schematics and calculations based on the Empire's scout ships. "In the 3 days since your arrival," she said, tapping the display, "we've already reverse-engineered parts of your propulsion technology. Not because we're smarter than you, but because that's what humans do. We adapt. We improvise. And we overcome." Silence fell over the chamber. The Imperial Council seemed to hold their collective breath. "This isn't a plea for mercy," Admiral Rodriguez continued, his voice steady. "It's not even a threat. Consider it a professional courtesy, like warning a child not to touch a hot stove. You're free to ignore it. But remember that we tried to warn you." Secretary General Akachi stepped forward, his gaze calm and unyielding, his voice weighted with the echoes of humanity's long history. "Every empire has believed itself invincible, every conqueror has seen their victory as inevitable. But do you know how many empires humanity has outlasted?" The display shifted to a final image of Earth, a small blue sphere in the vastness of space, seemingly fragile yet unbroken. "We're not asking for peace because we fear you," Akachi concluded. "We're suggesting peace because it's preferable to victory. But survival? That's non-negotiable." "Certainly." Here is a 1,000-word expansion of the final scene, capturing the tense confrontation between the Empire and Earth in the wake of the disastrous attack on Earth's defenses. Against the backdrop of Earth's deep space horizon, Dr. Sarah Chen's voice was quiet but resolute as she spoke to the assembled alien leaders. "Space is our home," she said, a bittersweet smile crossing her face. "We've fought gods and demons for it, survived ice ages and asteroid impacts. We've looked extinction in the eye so many times that we've stopped fearing it." She paused, her gaze intense, her words carrying a weight earned over millennia of human perseverance. "You're not the first to think you can take it from us, but you may well be the last." As the human delegation turned to leave, Vex Hour, one of the council members, called after them. "You come to this meeting with no weapons, no defenses, and no fleet positioned in orbit." His tone was laced with both irritation and confusion. "How can you be so confident?" Admiral Rodriguez paused just at the doorway, casting a steady gaze back at the council. His expression was calm yet somehow unsettling. "Because we didn't need to bring weapons," he said with a hint of a smirk. "You've already shown us yours." With that, he stepped through the doorway, letting it close behind him, leaving the Imperial War Council in a silence thick with uneasy contemplation. In the corner, High Analyst Zix observed quietly, updating his notes on human psychological warfare. He couldn't deny what he had witnessed. The humans had just staged a masterclass in psychological strategy, a display of confidence that had effectively unnerved the most powerful empire in the galaxy. As the council sat in their stillness, the Imperial strike force emerged from hyperspace, arriving in perfect formation near Earth. The massive crystalline warships gleamed in the sunlight, casting an ominous glow across the void. Operation Commander Khazair watched the coordination of his fleet with satisfaction as 5,000 strike craft launched in a perfectly timed assault, a demonstration of precision that had crushed countless civilizations before. First wave targeting locked, his tactical officer reported. Military installations identified, civilian casualties projected at 0%. Commence strike, Khazair ordered with finality. Show them the futility of. The end of his sentence died in his throat as the screens around him flared with warnings. Where they had expected Earth's orbital defenses to be primitive and scattered, a vast web of quantum-entangled energy shields had just blazed to life, illuminating space in a shimmering net of impenetrable force. The shields didn't just block the Empire's assault. They redirected it. Dozens of Imperial ships vanished in a single barrage, consumed in the redirected fire of their own weaponry. Impossible, the tactical officer muttered, his voice thick with disbelief. Their technology was assessed at level 2, but these are level 8 defenses. Khazair could only stare in horror as the once dismissed debris scattered around Earth's orbit revealed their true purpose: cunningly disguised defense platforms, hidden in plain sight among Earth's satellites, obsolete space stations and civilian infrastructure. The humans hadn't built conventional, obvious defenses. Instead, they had transformed their orbital junkyard into a deadly web of deception. Second wave, Khazair commanded, voice tight with barely controlled panic. Execute pattern Sigma. The Sigma maneuver was a complex assault formation, one that no civilization below level 7 would have any hope of countering. Khazair felt a flicker of relief, confident the primitive humans would struggle to decipher such an intricate tactic. But his hope shattered almost instantly. The humans were already countering the pattern. Worse, they were using modified versions of the Empire's own tactics against them, as if they had spent the last 3 days doing nothing but studying and adapting Imperial combat doctrine. Sir, the sensor officer called out, eyes wide with alarm. Detecting multiple launches from Earth's surface? Khazair expected a crude salvo of missiles, something explosive but predictable. But what emerged from Earth's surface was nothing he could have anticipated. Thousands of small, agile craft launched in rapid succession, their designs haphazard and varied, as though cobbled together from whatever technology humans had scavenged. Yet, despite their seemingly makeshift appearance, each one moved with chilling purpose. The sensors confirmed a shocking detail: they were piloted by civilians. They're using civilian pilots in active combat, Khazair murmured, horrified. The answer became apparent almost instantly. The human pilots maneuvered with complete disregard for their own safety, pushing their craft far beyond the limits of conventional flight capabilities. They executed maneuvers that should have torn their ships apart. The Empire's ships, burdened by safety protocols and structural limitations, struggled to keep up. Sir, the engineering officer's voice shook as he stammered, we're detecting quantum signatures similar to our own drives on the human craft. They've reverse-engineered our technology and weaponized it in ways we never considered. A sudden explosion rocked Khazair's flagship, the view screen flickering with damage reports. The tactical officer's face was pale as he watched human ships deliberately overloading their jury-rigged quantum drives to create localized space-time disruptions, effectively using faster-than-light technology as a weapon, a violation of every safety protocol in Imperial combat doctrine. 30% of our attack force is either disabled or destroyed, the tactical officer reported, barely able to mask the tremor in his voice. The humans, they're not trying to win conventionally. They're turning our own technology against us. Khazair's grip tightened on the command console. Launch the third wave, he ordered, voice low. Full attack pattern. Yet even as he spoke, his second-in-command interrupted him, her tone grim. They're not defending at random, sir, she pointed out, gesturing toward the tactical display. The strategy unfolding below was chilling in its precision. The humans weren't trying to protect everything. Instead, they had deliberately left gaps in their defenses, creating traps that channeled the Imperial forces into carefully calculated killing zones. Every sacrifice the humans made cost the Empire exponentially more in casualties and resources. Khazair's blood ran cold. They're fighting like they don't care about losing, he realized, his voice barely a whisper. Every sacrifice is calculated to bleed us dry. A new alert blared across the bridge. Earth's surface was launching yet another weapon, though this time it was neither missiles nor ships. Millions of tiny, barely visible objects streamed from the planet, a cloud of microscopic machines, nanodrones. As Kazair watched in astonishment, the tiny machines began to disassemble the wreckage of destroyed Imperial ships, converting the salvage into raw materials for more weapons. Within minutes, Earth had transformed the Empire's own debris field into an armory. "Fall back," Kazair ordered, his once confident voice now a ghostly whisper. "Signal the withdrawal." He stared at the screens, numb with disbelief as his remaining fleet retreated into hyperspace, a scattering of broken ships limping away from Earth's orbit. As he studied the casualty reports, he realized the grim truth. In under an hour of combat, humanity had destroyed nearly half his attack force, not with overwhelming technology, but with ruthless innovation and a complete disregard for the conventional boundaries of warfare. As the fleet entered the safety of hyperspace, Kazair turned to his communications officer. "Send word to High Command," he instructed, voice grim. "The humans, they didn't just prepare for our attack. They anticipated it, studied us, and weaponized everything we threw at them." In the hours that followed, High Command received Kazair's report with mounting unease. For the first time, the Empire was forced to admit that their standard conquest protocols had not only failed but had exposed critical vulnerabilities in their own methods. 3 months into the war, High Analyst Zix compiled his latest report from the Imperial Command Post. Sitting in the war room of humanity's underground capital, formerly NORAD, Admiral Rodriguez studied the holographic battle map with grim satisfaction. "They're adapting," Dr. Chin noted, observing the Imperial fleet's repositioning efforts. "They've stopped targeting our military installations?" "That's because," Admiral Rodriguez replied, eyes gleaming with fierce determination, "we stopped having military installations." "Certainly. Here's the rewritten passage expanded into 900 words. Every factory is a weapons plant," Secretary General Akachi replied with quiet determination. "Every civilian is a potential soldier. Every defeat is a lesson." The Empire's response to their initial failure had been as predictable as it was futile. After their first assault on Earth was repelled with staggering losses, they had turned to orbital bombardment, targeting major cities in the hope of breaking the human will. Instead, humanity had gone underground. When the Empire destroyed one of Earth's cities, they found it empty. Its population had already evacuated through a vast network of tunnels, which had been dug during the Cold War and expanded over the course of 3 frantic days in preparation for the assault. "We're operating on our own time now," Dr. Chin remarked, studying the streams of data flashing across the console. "Humanity is no longer just fighting for survival. We're teaching the Empire that survival means evolution, and we are evolving faster than they can adapt." The update came through a lieutenant, his voice full of urgency. "The Tesla Brigade reports success. Another 20,000 civilian vehicles are ready for space combat. They'll be fully operational in 6 hours. Rodriguez nodded approvingly. Elon Musk's contribution to the war effort was inspired, he said, his voice laced with a mix of admiration and grim satisfaction. Humanity had found a way to take ordinary electric vehicles and convert them into makeshift space fighters. Their simplified controls meant that anyone who could drive a car could pilot one of these converted ships in the vacuum of space. The Empire hadn't anticipated that the planet's civilian population, with no formal military training, would suddenly have the capability to fight back. "Status on Project Phoenix?" Dr. Chin asked, looking toward the lieutenant. He responded quickly, his voice taut with the excitement of success. "The nanite swarms have consumed 60% of the Imperial debris field," he reported. "We're turning their own ships into our defense systems faster than they can destroy them." Just as the report ended, a new alert flashed across the displays. The Empire was attacking again. This time they were targeting Earth's agricultural regions, hoping to cripple the planet's food supply. But humanity had learned to adapt. Even as the Empire's weapons fired, hidden greenhouse complexes, some deep underground, continued producing food. The Earth's subterranean infrastructure, an old legacy of Cold War planning, had now become the backbone of their survival. "They still don't understand," Akachi mused, shaking his head. "They think this war is about territory, resources, land. But that's not it." Rodriguez agreed. "It's about adaptation. Every time they destroy something, we rebuild it better. Every tactic they use against us, we absorb it, improve it." Dr. Chin pulled up new data streams, her brow furrowing as she studied the findings. "Look at this," she said, pointing to the fluctuating readings. "Their ships are becoming hesitant to use their main weapons. They're realizing we're studying their technology. Every time they fire, we learn something new. The displays showed hundreds of small-scale engagements across the solar system. Civilian ships, once little more than sedans and trucks, were now in combat, harassing the Empire's supply lines. Automated drones, constructed from salvaged Imperial technology, conducted guerrilla-style hit-and-run attacks. Earth's response to the Empire was not only military, it was technological and social evolution at an unprecedented rate. A message from the asteroid belt militias interrupted the calm of the command center. The asteroid miners report successful implementation of Phase 3, the lieutenant announced. Rodriguez smiled, his expression one of grim satisfaction. The asteroid miners, individuals already adapted to the harshness of space, had become experts in asymmetric warfare. They had repurposed mining equipment into devastating weapons and used their knowledge of space rocks and orbital mechanics to launch surprise attacks against Imperial supply lines. They had turned a once deadly environment into a powerful advantage. Phase 3 implementation was their final step, Rodriguez said, his voice steady as he surveyed the holographic maps. The Empire's supply lines are being ravaged by attacks they can't predict or prevent. Another transmission appeared on the main screen. We've intercepted a new Imperial transmission, Dr. Chin announced. They're requesting reinforcements? Akachi raised an eyebrow, surprised. Requesting reinforcements? He asked. This is the first time in their recorded history they've ever had to do that? The transmission from the Empire flickered onto the screen, and the message it contained was chilling. Human resistance exceeds all historical parameters. They do not defend territory. They do not protect resources. They adapt faster than we can develop new strategies. Request immediate reinforcement and strategic reassessment. Rodriguez leaned back in his chair, eyes narrowing. Too late, he muttered. But they're learning. A new alert sounded, and the sensors indicated movement from the outer system. The crew assumed it was Imperial reinforcements arriving to assist the failing forces, but instead what they saw shocked them. Ships from other conquered worlds, now fully armed and equipped, were entering the fray. And these ships were using tactics that could only have been inspired by Earth's resistance. It's spreading, Dr. Chin whispered. Other species are watching us. They're learning from us. Humanity's real weapon, Akachi said, his voice low and reflective, is not our technology or our tactics. It's our example. We're showing the galaxy that the Empire can bleed. Rodriguez watched as more reports came in, indicating a growing wave of rebellion spreading throughout Imperial space. The Empire's once unquestioned dominance was beginning to crack, and Earth was at the heart of it. The planet wasn't just fighting for its survival, it was teaching the galaxy how to resist. In the Empire's research chambers, High Analyst Zix sat alone, surrounded by data streams, historical archives, and tactical reports. It had all come to this. The ancient warnings about Earth, once sealed away in the deepest vaults of Imperial knowledge, had now proven prescient. Show me the original quarantine order, he commanded, his voice hollow with understanding. His assistant, Vina, approached, still bearing the scars of a human ambush that had nearly destroyed their research vessel. The document materialized on the screen, its date stamped in the earliest years of the Empire's expansion. World designation, Earth. Status, extreme hazard. Recommendation, permanent quarantine. Reason, evolution under extreme conditions has produced an apex adaptation species. All life forms on the planet display unprecedented survival traits. Recommend no contact. They knew then, Zix muttered, his eyes glued to the document. The First Empire knew what humanity was. And they had ignored the warning. Zix expanded the display, showing Earth's evolutionary history, a relentless cycle of mass extinctions that had only accelerated life's adaptation. Ice ages that should have frozen evolution had instead fueled it, forcing life on Earth to evolve, adapt, and become stronger. And at the apex of this brutal forge stood humanity. Look at their cellular structure, Zix said, his voice tinged with awe. Their bodies are constantly at war with themselves. Their immune systems don't just fight threats, they remember them. They learn. New battle reports streamed in. Another Imperial fleet had been decimated, not by superior technology, but by humans using their own ships' emergency systems against them. The humans weren't just learning Imperial technology, they were finding ways to use it that the Empire had never imagined. Zix's eyes widened as new data from Earth's internet appeared on the display. It was clear now, humanity had been preparing for an alien invasion long before the Empire had arrived. But not with weapons. With ideas. And that, more than any weapon, was what would bring the Empire to its knees. This isn't just science fiction, it's tactical speculation, Zix said, his voice cool but filled with an underlying unease. He gestured at the footage that filled the holoscreen. On the surface of Earth, Imperial bombardment had devastated a city. Buildings were reduced to rubble, fires raged through what had once been a thriving urban center. But as the dust began to settle, something unexpected occurred. Humanity didn't cower or flee. They didn't even mourn. Instead, the humans were already at work, turning the ruins into new defenses. They didn't just rebuild what was destroyed, they improved it. Zix's eyes narrowed as he watched the footage. It was a level of resilience and adaptation that the Empire had not anticipated. This was more than just survival, it was evolution in action, a species so driven to survive that they found ways to adapt and improve in the face of utter devastation. Zix had underestimated them and the realization stung. "We thought we were the apex of evolution," Zix muttered under his breath. 10,000 worlds, each contributing its strength to the Empire. But we evolved in safety and stability. The humans evolved in chaos. He gestured toward the geological records of Earth, showing how the planet had been in constant turmoil for millions of years. Earth had suffered countless natural disasters, from asteroids to ice ages, from tectonic upheavals to violent climate shifts. Every disaster had forced life to adapt, to evolve in ways that no other species in the Empire had ever had to face. And each time the life forms of Earth had come back stronger. Humanity, in particular, had learned to not just survive but to thrive amid constant upheaval. "Look at them," Zix said, gesturing at a series of tactical analyses. "They're not just using our technology, they're adapting it. Their tactics are evolving faster than our doctrine can handle." A new report flashed on his screen, grabbing his attention. The Imperial battle group that had been sent to neutralize a human stronghold had gone dark. Their last known position was a battlefield, but there were no survivors, no transmissions. The humans had outmaneuvered them once again. The tactical analysis revealed something even more shocking. The humans had somehow modified medical nanotechnology, technology once used for healing, into a weapon capable of disabling Imperial ships from within. It was an innovation that no one could have predicted. The humans had turned life-saving technology into a means of war. "Unbelievable," Zix whispered, staring at the report. "How can they think of something like this? We thought we were the pinnacle of evolution, and now we're being outwitted by a species that has only just begun to scratch the surface of their potential." Vina, Zix's assistant, stood beside him, her bioluminescence pulsing in alarm as she read through the new data. "The rebellion is spreading," she said, her voice edged with worry. "Other species are adapting like humans. They're taking impossible risks, using human-inspired tactics, and learning to adapt faster than our strategy can handle." Zix laughed bitterly, though there was no humor in it. "Of course they are," he said. "We didn't just wake a sleeping giant. We gave humanity students. And the one thing they might be better at than surviving is teaching others how to survive." The realization hit Zix with full force. The Empire had thought it was conquering another planet, another species to add to its ever-growing collection. But Earth and humanity was not like the others. Humanity was teaching the rest of the galaxy how to resist. And as that lesson spread, the Empire's grip on its territory loosened. He pulled up a series of old reports, comparing Earth's early communications with the First Empire's quarantine orders. The humans had warned the Empire, tried to warn them that humanity was no ordinary species, but their warnings had been ignored. "Send this to High Command," Zix ordered, his voice quiet but firm. "Compile my analysis, full encryption. They need to understand what we're really fighting." The message he crafted was brief, but devastating in its implications. "Earth is not a planet," he wrote. "It is an evolutionary crucible. A world where species are forged in the fires of adversity, capable of surviving anything. Humanity is not just a civilization, they are the ultimate expression of life's will to survive. We didn't find a new species to conquer. We found the species that evolution itself couldn't kill." As Zix hit send, a flood of new reports arrived on his screen. More Imperial worlds were falling to rebellion, and each report told the same story. Humanity hadn't just survived the Empire's assault. They had become the Empire's worst nightmare. Teachers of resistance, professors of survival, and mentors in the art of defying impossible odds. The Empire's mistake had been thinking that it could simply add one more world to its collection. Instead, the Empire had released humanity into the galaxy, and the galaxy would never be the same. On Christos, the Imperial Palace, an architectural marvel that had stood unconquered for 10,000 years, now stood as a symbol of the Empire's crumbling might. Inside its perfectly engineered halls, there was a sound that had never been heard before, the sound of defeat. High Commander Vex Thor watched the emergency session of the Imperial Council, his crystalline form crackling with barely contained fury. The map of rebellion that filled the main display was a sea of red. Thousands of once loyal worlds were now ablaze with resistance, their populations rising up in defiance. And in the center of it all, Earth stood as the epicenter, its influence spreading like wildfire. The rebellion is spreading too quickly, High Analyst Zell said, his own form dimmed with exhaustion as he studied the new data. We've seen this kind of instability before. Complex systems reach a critical point, and when they do, failure is inevitable. But we never expected this. We never expected it to come from a single species. Vex Thor's voice was low and filled with frustration. What I don't understand, he said, his voice cutting through the tension in the chamber, is how one species, how humans, could cause an entire empire to fracture in less than a standard year. The display shifted, showing footage from across Imperial space. On Proxima I, slaves were using mining equipment as weapons, just as Earth's asteroid miners had taught them to. The crystalline beings of Arcturus, once proud and untouchable, were now adapting their natural forms into weapon configurations. It was a trick they had learned from studying human biological adaptability. And everywhere the influence of Earth spread. They're everywhere, one council member whispered. Not physically, but their influence. Their tactics. It's spreading like a virus. The room fell silent as one member spoke up, his voice filled with dread. The Centurions are using their own children as pilots. Just as humans do. The Relians are converting civilian infrastructure into military assets. Every species we've conquered is learning to fight like humans. As the council members struggled to comprehend the scale of the revolution, new alerts flashed across the display. The Orion Arm was in full revolt. The Carina sector had declared independence. And all the while, Earth's transmission channels continued to broadcast messages of resistance. It's too late, Vex Thor muttered desperately. We could glass their world, end this at its source. Wipe them out completely. Zix cut him off with a bitter laugh. It's too late for that, he said. Humanity has already spread beyond Earth. They have colonies in the asteroid belt, on Mars, on Europa. Each one of those colonies is teaching the nearby species new ways to fight. And the humans we capture? They're teaching our prison populations how to resist even as we watch. The council chamber fell into a heavy silence as a new transmission arrived. This time it wasn't from the Empire. It was from Earth's Unified Defense Council. But it wasn't directed at the Empire, it was broadcasting to every world in Imperial space, to every species still fighting for their freedom. Each of you has strengths the Empire never let you discover, the message began. Each of you has potential they tried to suppress. We offer no troops, no ships, no weapons. We offer something more powerful, knowledge. The message continued, Earth's databases are now open to all. Our tactics, our adaptations, our ways of survival, they're yours. Learn from them. Improve them. Make them your own. The Empire taught us we weren't alone in the galaxy. Now we teach you that you're not alone in the fight. As the message spread and was rebroadcast by countless worlds, High Commander Vex Thor realized with horror that humanity had not only been defeating the Empire, they were dismantling it. They were teaching every conquered species how to break free, how to resist, and how to fight for their own survival. We've lost the Carina sector entirely, a tactical officer reported, his voice strained. The locals are using modified medical scanners to detect our cloaked ships, another human innovation. The Arcus cluster has fallen, another added. They're using our own supply lines against us. The Empire was no longer fighting against Earth. It was fighting against a wave of resistance, a wave that had been sparked by humanity's sheer will to survive, and to teach others how to do the same. Zix Stull stepped forward, his form pulsing with an urgency that matched the gravity of the situation. His eyes scanned the faces of the Imperial Council, each one etched with worry and uncertainty. The weight of his words hung heavy in the air. We must sue for peace, he declared, his voice steady yet firm. Not just with Earth but with all our former subjects. The humans have shown them that resistance isn't futile. It's inevitable. Either we adapt, as humanity teaches, or we fall. The council chamber erupted into a frenzy of voices, some in disbelief, others in outright opposition. Imperial pride was too great, the notion of negotiating with the very species they had spent so long subjugating was anathema to them. But deep down they all knew the truth that Zix had spoken. The Empire hadn't just failed to conquer Earth, it had unwittingly unleashed humanity's influence upon the entire galaxy. Every world the Empire had conquered over the last 10,000 years was now learning to fight back. What had begun with a single species was quickly spreading across the stars. And it was all happening in a matter of months. As if on cue, Earth broadcast one final transmission, a message that was not a threat but a somber reminder. The voice on the transmission was calm and unwavering, though it carried an unmistakable weight. We advised against this course of action. The choice to ignore that advice was yours. The consequences belonged to everyone. The message echoed through the imperial halls, the words hanging like an inevitable sentence. The golden age of the Empire, which had lasted for millennia, had ended, not with a bang, not with a decisive battle, but with the sound of countless chains breaking, all across the stars. Humanity had made its mark and the galaxy would never be the same. The peace conference was held on neutral ground, an asteroid that had once been a rebel mining colony, now terraformed and transformed into a symbol of the new era. Representatives from over 10,000 formerly subjugated worlds gathered in a grand chamber, its walls made from salvaged imperial ships, serving as a stark reminder of how quickly things could change. The room buzzed with energy as species from every corner of the galaxy came together, exchanging ideas, sharing knowledge, and forging new bonds. A quiet revolution was unfolding. Dr. Sarahan, Earth's lead representative, stood at the table where Earth's delegation had taken their seats. As she looked around the room, her eyes took in the diverse forms of life that surrounded her. For the first time in history, former enemies, former slaves, and former masters were interacting in ways the Empire had never permitted. Former subjugated species traded technical knowledge with their one-time captors. Warriors who had fought bitter battles now exchanged tactical insights. The galaxy was rewiring itself, reshaping the fabric of intergalactic relations. It was a moment of profound change. "They're expecting us to demand revenge," Admiral Rodriguez observed, his tone laced with dry humor. He gestured to the Imperial delegation, a group of once proud crystalline beings, now occupying a small table. Their forms flickered dimly with defeat and anxiety. "They don't understand us at all, do they?" Secretary General Achi, who had been quietly observing the proceedings, smiled. "They never did," she said softly. "They thought they could control us. And now look." She nodded toward the Imperial representatives. "They are the ones who are controlled, who are waiting for us to take what they believe is owed." The room fell into a momentary silence as High Commander Vex Thor, a towering figure of crystalline might, approached the Earth delegation. His once imposing form now moved with a hesitant grace, a far cry from the brash and confident figure who had first encountered humanity. He stopped before Dr. Chin, the leader of Earth's delegation, and with a subdued voice he spoke. "We are prepared to discuss surrender terms." Dr. Chin raised an eyebrow, her expression calm but firm. "We're not here for surrender," she replied. "We're here to build something new." Her words struck a chord in the room, and a palpable silence fell over the assembly. Dr. Chin stood, addressing the delegates from all sides. Her voice rang out clear and unwavering. "The Empire's greatest mistake wasn't in trying to conquer Earth," she began. "It was in believing that strength comes from control. For 10,000 years the Empire gathered species, bringing them under its rule, trying to harness their potential through subjugation. But we've learned a different lesson." She gestured toward the diverse gathering in the room, her eyes sweeping across the many species now represented. "Look around this room. Every species here has something unique to offer. The Empire tried to control these gifts to suppress them. We want to learn from them, share with them, grow with them." From her pocket she withdrew a small data crystal. The same crystal she had brought to their first Imperial meeting so many months ago. The council members stared at it, intrigued. Dr. Chin held it up, her voice taking on a softer, more reflective tone. "This contains Earth's complete scientific and cultural database, not our weapons or military tactics but everything else. Our art, our music, our dreams, our failures and how we overcame them. Our wars and how we found peace." The Imperial representatives looked at one another, their forms flickering with confusion. "You're giving this away?" Vex Thor's crystalline form pulsed with disbelief. "Freely," Achi confirmed, her smile widening. "And we invite every world here to do the same. Share your knowledge, your culture, your unique perspectives. The Empire built a prison of worlds. Let's build a library of civilizations instead." Around the room, representatives from the liberated worlds began to respond. The Arcturians offered their insights into crystal engineering. The Relians shared their extensive knowledge of environmental adaptation techniques, a treasure trove of knowledge that had been hoarded for millennia, now flowing freely. Species that had once fought, that had once been isolated from one another, were beginning to realize the power that lay in collaboration. But surely you want compensation, one of the Imperial representatives pressed. Reparations? For what? Admiral Rodriguez interrupted, his voice cutting through the tension. You gave us exactly what we needed, a reason to unite, to push ourselves to grow. And in return you gave the galaxy something it desperately needed. Proof that the Empire could be resisted. Dr. Chin activated a holographic display, showing the new political structure Earth proposed. A galactic common where every species had an equal voice, where strength came from cooperation, not control. Where diversity was celebrated, not suppressed. We don't want to rule, Dr. Chin explained. We want to learn, to explore, to discover what 10,000 species working together can accomplish. As if to emphasize her point, a Centurion engineer was already deep in discussion with a human physicist, sketching out designs that combine the insights of both species. Nearby, a group of former Imperial scholars eagerly shared their vast historical archives with representatives from newly liberated worlds. Ideas were flowing freely, and there was a tangible sense of hope in the air. This was not just a new political order, it was a new way of thinking, a new way of being. The choice is simple, Achi said, addressing the Imperial delegation. Join us as equals in building something new, or cling to the past and be left behind. We advised against fighting us. Now we advise something else. Grow with us? The chamber erupted in applause, the representatives from across the galaxy standing in unity. Species that had been enemies for millennia began drafting cooperation agreements, the carefully maintained barriers between civilizations dissolving as new alliances formed. The first session of the new Galactic Commons concluded with an overwhelming sense of solidarity. The Empire's long-held monopoly on power had come to an end, replaced by a new vision for the future. As the room emptied, High Analyst Zixel approached Dr. Chen. His form flickered with the recognition of something profound. You never wanted conquest, he said quietly, his voice tinged with understanding. You wanted catalysis? Dr. Chen smiled, a warmth in her gaze. The Empire thought Earth was quarantined to protect the galaxy from us, she said. They never considered that maybe, just maybe, the galaxy was being protected for us, until it was ready for what humanity could teach about freedom, adaptation, and the strength that comes from standing together. That night, as the stars shone brighter than they had in millennia, the galaxy seemed poised on the edge of something new. Humanity had given the galaxy more than just liberation, it had given it hope. And hope, as the galaxy now knew, was a force no empire could ever contain.